We love a bear market. We would love to have the bear market go deeper and continue for longer. I don't think this is like any other previous bear market because of the change of the phase from the frontier phase into the traditional phase. People won't be rewarded for doing exactly the same thing they did last time. You need to continue building in the bear market, but you really need to change things up, build different things, and build real practical solutions that solve problems.
Hello, everybody. It is Jacob from BeInCrypto. I have a great pleasure to be here with Miko Matsumura, a managing partner for Gumi Cryptos Capital. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Nice to have you here. I heard your opening speech at NBX Warsaw, Poland conference. You said that the wild west of crypto is over. What do you mean by that?
Yes, I think we've basically won. We've basically gotten everything that we wanted. I think the reserve bank is solved, which is Bitcoin. I think the investment bank is solved, which is Ethereum. I think the retail bank is solved. Now, there's an argument, right, which is whether it's Base or whether it's Solana, or there may be room. But I think retail banking is so large that there will be multiple winners in retail banking. But I think we have everything we need. Obviously, regulation is coming. And so I think we won. I think the Wild West phase is over. And I think that it's really now about scaling. It's about making this thing 1,000 times bigger.
We won, but because we have regulations and we have that type of approach and your beautiful metaphors. But from crypto OGs and those crypto early adopters, that is kind of like a lose when we have everything under control right now. What's your view on that?
I agree. I think one of the funny things about it is that if your temperament is a pioneer, if you're one of these rugged people in the frontier, maybe you're really good at shooting or something, right? You're good at catching snakes, or I don't know what it is, but like whatever it is that you're good at, like you may want to move to a new frontier. I think there's frontiers in the AI segment. I think, obviously it depends on what your passion is. It depends on, what kind of taste that you have. But, ultimately, I do feel like the frontier phase is coming to an end.
Okay, whether you like it or not, this is the diagnosis we have right now. And this is what we're talking about here in Warsaw, NBX. My next question is about breaking away from institutional financial system. We won because we have an alternative right now. Alternative the founding fathers dreamt about. Where do you see the biggest potential right now into realizing that alternative financial system that is somehow merging or maybe in some sectors taking over the traditional finance approach?
Yeah, I would say that the frontier economies, ultra high growth economies, there's LATAM. I think the global south is filled with opportunity. I think there's an incredible opportunity to do reinvention there. Obviously, we're seeing like hyper growth economies, places like Nigeria. So a lot of like extreme growth regions there. I would say there's opportunities to sort of not even reinvent, but invent some things for the first time, right? So I think there's a frontier there. I think, one of the things we need to do as an industry is to really mature in how we use blockchain. I think we really went through a phase where blockchain was like everything has to be everything and everything has to be like, here's your seed phrases and, everything really hardcore, right? And I think Vitalik is talking about public bulletin board, right? Which is, he's really not even talking about Ethereum as a ledger. He's really just talking about it as like, well, you can write this and other people can read it in public and it's fine, right? So I think that kind of mindset is a big shift. And I think we really need to embrace it. We need to really build applications in the application layer. And we don't really need to kind of like rebuild things from the foundation so much.
Very well. Thank you very much for this answer. One more broader question about the present state of the market. Most people are concerned that this is the bear phase and it will be ongoing in this midterm year for at least the end of that year or the fourth quarter. Are you also on the same line? Do you think that this is the time when we restructure, rebuild and prepare for the next big thing to come in crypto? Or maybe it's not a thing. It's just like a small correction of price and enthusiasm of people, and then we'll go back to the track.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not a market timing or prediction person. I do think market timing is opaque. I think prediction people are kind of like really just trying to pull a fast move because nobody can predict what the market will do. But in my mind, I feel like as a net accumulator, as someone who's a buyer of assets, like we love a bear market. Like a bear market is when assets are cheap. If things that you want to buy are cheap, then you're happy, right? So like bear markets are wonderful. And, we would love to to have the bear market go deeper and continue for longer. That the deeper, longer, is, to me, the other thing that bear markets do is they drive conviction, which is that the people who are still building at the very deepest part of the bear are probably the people who have the highest conviction and who are really the most passionate, and probably the people who end up winning the most. So, in a way, like, that's kind of our mood. I do think this, though, which is that I don't think this is like any other previous bear market. I do think that because of the change of the phase from the frontier phase into the traditional phase, I do feel like people won't be rewarded for doing exactly the same thing they did last time. So I don't think it's going to be like, oh, just go and build another meme coin and then, you'll be rich. Like, it's not going to be like that. Like, I think the new people are coming, regulations are coming. And I think, you need to continue building in the bear market, but you really need to change things up. You need to behave differently, build different things, and build real practical solutions that solve problems.
Absolutely. So you see there's an ocean of possibility right now, but also kind of a reality check for those weaklings that will go into abyss at some point.
Yeah, and I really feel like the thing that is really important is really focusing on solutions, right? Focusing on, solving real world problems, and I think part of the thing that's happening now is the solo founder thing is happening. I think solo founders are capital efficient. So I think that in the bear market, you can have kind of a low burn rate. You can basically lean into Claude code. You can basically build. And to me, the biggest things you need are a lot of courage. You need a lot of curiosity, and you need a lot of, conviction, right? So I think if you have those types of things, I think you will do really well as sort of a taste maker. I think you need a lot of passion for what you do. And I think those are the kinds of founders that I think will do well in this type of an environment.
Well, passion and do it from your heart, not just your mind, and the best to combine both, right? Moving on to another aspect and your past in Yale, working in neuroscience, I will ask you kind of a nerdish question. Yes. I know you like. You worked and you spent a lot of time developing abstract computational neural networks.
Yes.
Now the big thing is AI in many phases, forms, and the frontier that's happening right now. How would you compare those research you did back in the days with the modern LLMs? Do you see parallels, or there are completely different concepts right now?
Yeah, it's 100% the same except for one paper. And the one paper was really the Vashwani Transformers paper, which put the T into the GPT, right? And the idea of transformer is just insanely powerful. What they really did is they're using this concept called a dot product, right? So for those of you who are studying things like vector databases, there's this thing called cosine similarity, right? Which is essentially a semantic vector that allows you to multi-dimensionalize, right? So for example, in the case of Gemini embedding, it's like a 3072 dimension vector embedding, right? So cosine similarity tells you how similar the vector points across these 3000 plus dimensions, right? But the thing that's exciting about a transformer is it actually uses this thing called a dot product. And a dot product is basically, not only is it pointing the same direction, but it has a length. And what it means is, so the subtitle of the Transformers paper was basically attention is all you need. And the thing that's amazing about a dot product is not only does it point in the vector direction, but it also gives you a length. And the length is how much attention should you pay to this piece, right? So as you have a large data pool, right, what happens is attention is the mechanism that allows you to pick out the thing that is the most salient or important. Why is this important? The reason why it's important is that 99.9% of what people today call artificial intelligence is actually artificial stupidity, right? People call it slop, but I think it's artificial stupidity. And the point of attention is the point to be able to take the 0.001% of things that are not stupidity and to pick them out, is to say, this is the thing that matters, right? And if you think about attention as this, that is the most powerful thing that you can give to a machine, right? Because if you're unable to pay attention, the thing that's crazy that's happening to young people today is they're watching too much TikTok. Absolutely. And the young people aren't able to pay attention. It's terrible, actually, right? Because to me, attention is all you need. That's what the Transformers paper says. And this attention is a superpower. If you can focus your attention, if you can, because really, in intelligence, 99% of like human thoughts, at least my thoughts, when I study my own thoughts, 99% of my thoughts are basically trash thoughts, right? They're just bad. They make no sense. It's just garbage, it's stupid, wrong, whatever, offensive, like stupid thoughts, right? Constantly having stupid
Let's not go
thoughts,
that
right?
deep.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of stupid thoughts, right? But the thing that's nice is having attention, because then you can say, don't pursue all of those thoughts, only pursue this one thought. Like this thought is to pursue, right? And so I guess what I'm saying is that if you go back 30 years and you look at the history of neural networks, we're still doing the exact same backpropagation, Rumelhart and Hinton. We're doing the exact same thing in LLM as we did then, right? 30 years ago. The only difference is attention, like the Transformers paper. So like that's the only difference. Huge difference, world of difference. Like it's now day and night different.
Okay, so you see, a little big difference makes everything a completely new world. Attention distinguishes. So transferring what Miko just said to English is not watch too much TikTok and spread your span of attention to be able to follow what you thought about, what you were thinking about a minute, 2 minutes, an hour, 2 days ago, and continue this stream. And this is what computational neural network are capable of doing right now. And this is what is modern AI based on.
That's the big difference. The big difference is only that now they're able to selectively pay attention, right? And before they couldn't. And that was a gigantic thing. There was actually a guy who named Schmidhuber, who was basically working on this thing called LSTM. And LSTM was basically making the guys think harder on every single thought, right? And this guy basically broke his head, because can you imagine taking every thought you have in your head and pursuing it to the nth degree? It's such a waste of time. If you don't have attention, then you have no way of picking out the thing that's worth pursuing. So that's the whole point, is you have to pick, you have to be like, this is worth pursuing. Everything else is trash. Let's go.
Absolutely. It resembles me, I hold PhD in philosophy, and philosophers, phenomenologists, they could wrote not books, but, shelves of books about going into analysis of, I don't know, a box or a monument or something.
Yeah.
So their attention was spread into like enormous space. And this is something that is going on in computational science right now. It's truly amazing. Truly amazing.
Yes. And so absolutely, like, I think that's the major difference. Obviously there's pre-training. If you look at GPT, right, it's generative pre-trained transformer. The T is the big one. Pre-training, one thing that did happen in the past 30 years is we got a lot more data. So we have an internet size full of data, and we got a lot more computing, right? So those are nice. And in fact, we couldn't have modern LLMs with like the number. The neural networks I was building, we were like 33 parameters, right? Now we're up to like 405 billion, right? Modern LLMs are like 1 trillion parameters, things like Codex 5.3 or like Opus. Those are like trillion parameter models, right? So like computing helps, like Jensen's, like CUDA, all of that helps. But I would say that like the big difference is actually the transformers. That's the big research difference.
Thank you for breaking it down to this single crucial factor. It makes it more obvious and transparent. I think we need to stop here, but I love the conversation. We've been here with Miko Matsumura, managing partner of Gumi Crypto Capital. Thank you very much for this lovely conversation.
Great. Thank you so much.